Lian Li has updated its Strimmer cables with a new version called the Strimmer Wireless, which is mad because they're obviously wires, but the basic logic of them is very interesting. These are currently available with 24-pin power cable for your motherboard and the extension lead for your graphics card with a 90-degree angle adapter with a 12-volt high power connector, as well as some other versions that I'll leave linked in the description. You can get a wide and narrow one, and also 8-pin PCIe power connector options as well. These are really nice cables that are most importantly really easy to install. Now I've done a separate guide on how to install them and to connect them up. I want to tell you the process for doing it is really straightforward. Also, obviously having a 90-degree angle adapter for your graphics card means there's more space towards the glass, which frees up that problem and stops any worry there. Now you can get these in various different versions, and with and without the controller, and I'd recommend getting it with the controller unless you're buying it with Lian Li's wireless fans as well. But the basic premise is these plug directly into the device, for example the motherboard with the 24-pin power cable, and that's it, minimum fuss. The power for the RGB lighting is actually drawn from the power cable. Then you have this wireless controller, which plugs into a USB port on the back of your motherboard and then gives you control via Lian Li's L-Connect software. This is very straightforward at a minimum level. That's basically all you need. A very simple installation. Now you can also get one for your graphics card. This is the 12-volt high power version, which obviously has the right angled adapter, but also various different things included in the box. You'll see that you have the ability to swap out the caps, for example, and change the look and feel of it. You can also flip the direction of the 90-degree angle adapter in there as well. So as standard out of the box, for example, it fit nice and easily on this 4070 Ti. Notice that it's got some blue pins where the connection goes in because you're meant to push those all the way in so they're no longer visible. That way you know it's fully seated and there's no concerns about the cable melting over time in theory, and it's fairly straightforward to set up. And then you just plug in your power cable from your power supply unit to the other end. And again, the RGB lighting is powered from the cable itself. So this is basically the setup there, which makes it really easy. Now, if you don't know already, the original setup for the previous model was a lot more complicated than that. So for the Strimmer Plus V2, for example, which you needed a 24-pin and the GPU power cables for as well, there was a lot more complicated setup in terms of the controllers. The cable needed to plug into its own controller, separate from the fan controller that you probably use in your system. And you had 3 ports on it you could plug different cables into, and then a switch. And then you also needed to plug in the power cable and also to have a USB connection and a 5-volt RGB connector plugged into the motherboard. So you need SATA power and these other connections, which obviously confused people. And both cables need to plug into that controller. You need to find somewhere for it at the rear. I did a guide on this, but loads of people were still confused by it and had problems with it over the time since I published that. But now you've basically got this simple little USB controller instead of those. So you don't need any of those other cables. There's no SATA power, for example. It makes it a lot easier to run the cables and to sort things out. So this USB sends a wireless signal and then allows you to control the lighting. But if you want to, you can put it inside the case still. So there is an adapter cable in the box. So instead of putting it in the USB port and obviously using up a motherboard port on the back of your motherboard, you can use this adapter cable which plugs into the dongle. And then that itself has a USB connection and a PWM connection. So it gets power from your motherboard rather than from your power supply unit. So you plug it into a chassis fan header or system fan header on your motherboard and a USB port on the motherboard as well, and that makes that really straightforward connection for you. It's very simple. Now the other benefit of the graphics card version is it's actually changeable, so you can swap it out in some ways. So for example, this 4090 that I've got, the adapter on it, so the actual cable where it plugs in is the other way up, which means the default setting for the Strimmer cable won't actually fit in there, it'll be upside down, but you can just simply unscrew it and then make a couple of changes to the thing, flip the cables around, flip the adapter over the other way, and then it will work. It's a little bit more effort, and I've shown the steps of how to do this fully in the wiring guide that I'll link to in the description, but with a couple of minutes of time and some steady hands, you can obviously make this change and then adapt it into your system really easily. As you've seen from the shots earlier on, it will also work whether your GPU is vertically mounted or in a standard orientation. So it's pretty easy to install and set up, and then get some nice additional RGB lighting in your system. Obviously, it will also work with Lian Li's wireless fans and with the wireless LCD fans, which you can have separate content on if you want to check that out. Subscribe to see that. And it's able to control all of those from that single controller via L-Connect as well. So it's a really straightforward system. It's going to make it a lot more user-friendly, but there's also some very subtle changes. It's got a better diffusion to the lighting. You also have a better unit for the edging of it and the way it installs. It fits nicer in the system. You've got more cable visible, and you can also easily adjust it so it's not getting in the way of the glass panel in your case as well. So there's some very nice, thoughtful additions to the way this is set up, making it really easy to install and to get some really nice lighting in there. Now, obviously, this is all controllable with L-Connect and not with your motherboard software, so it doesn't have the same logic as the previous version where you could plug the 5-volt RGB connection in instead. But it does mean that you can easily set it up, pair it with the wireless adapter, tie it up with other things in your system, sync the lighting with other Lian Li fans in there as well via L-Connect, easily using the quick sync lighting options in there, or go through a variety of different RGB effects really easily. And as you'd expect, those lighting effects include a lot of different ones, some quite aggressive and swift, some very interesting, and some a bit more chilled out. You can adjust the brightness and also the speed of these things. You can sync, so both the Strimers will do the same thing at the same time, and you can also sync everything in your system to have similar lighting functionality. There's a lot more lighting options here, a lot more effects, and a lot of other things. So it's a pretty nice system, a nice upgrade to the previous model. Now, there are a variety of options available, and at a later date, they're also releasing a wireless CPU setup. So you have two 8-pin EPS power cables for the top left of your motherboard that you can throw in as well. And you also have various other options for the graphics card, depending on what GPU you've got. As I said, I'll leave links in the description so you can find out more about these. But hopefully you found this useful. Check out the full wiring guide if you'd like to find a more in-depth look at them. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.